Meet the Magazine, and I am so fortunate, so gracious to be sitting here today with one of our, I'll say, hometown heroes, the Majority Whip, the Honorable Congressman Jim Clyburn. How are you doing today, Congressman Clyburn?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So I want to jump right into that title, Majority Whip. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, well, as you know, our system of government we get from England. And of course, in England, uh, what the favorite sport there is fox hunting. And as you know, in fox hunting, it's always riders on horseback, uh, and they've got hounds that are running through the woods chasing the foxes. In order, every now and then, one of the hounds would get out of line. The people on horseback are called whipperins, and they get that because they are all have whips. They use these whips to snap at the hounds to keep them in line, and they're called whipperins. And so when the government was set up, you've got the leaders, various officers, they decided that they needed somebody as a part of the leadership that would keep everybody in line. Mm-hmm. And so that person, they just shortened the name to whip. So in every party, you got the party leader, mm-hmm. and then you got the whip. And so that's where the name comes from. So it's my job to get the votes. Whenever the leader puts an issue on the floor, now the Speaker of the House runs the whole House. Right. But the leader, the Democratic leader, decides when the issue should come to the floor. Okay. And the whip job is to make sure you get the 218 votes that are necessary to carry the day. So I stay in close contact with all the members. You get to know all the members as well as you possibly can. You get to know their likes and their dislikes. You learn stuff about their districts. And so there are a lot of times I might go to a member and I say, look, we need your vote on this, but there's a little thing in this bill that I think you need to pay close attention to because it could have some impact on your congressional district. So it takes getting to know your members, getting to know their districts, because you don't want to ask a member to vote for something and they vote for it. Right. It causes them great difficulty back home. So that's my job. So that's the whip's job.
Okay. Now, if you can break it down for us who aren't really heavy on the political scene, I can say, the breakdown between the House and the Senate, specifically as it pertains to now what we're looking at with the new appointment of the next Supreme Court Justice. How does that breakdown take place? And I know I've heard the Senate has more of the Republican presence than the House, but what does that mean for us, the voters who are down here outside of the House? What does that mean?
Well, it means simply this: the House got no role in this. Our Constitution provides when it comes to the courts, most especially in this instance, the Supreme Court, mm-hmm. the president nominates, the Senate confirms. That means when the president says, I want this person sitting on the Supreme Court, the Senate then has to take that person, go through the process of vetting that person, mm-hmm. hold hearings, and let people come to testify for or against that person. And so the House does not play a role in that at all.
Okay.
So that's the Senate then vote. And if you get 51 votes in the Senate, then you get the appointment. But nothing, so my job is not affected by that, and my job can't affect that.
Okay. So now when you speak of the Senate, as we've been hearing over the past couple of weeks, the Senate at this point is predominantly Republican. That comes down to local elections. Can you speak to the importance of getting out and voting in local elections, not just the big elections like the presidential?
You know, I say to folks a lot, no president ever came to your school board meeting. Would you consider to be your school to be important to your child? I think so.
Absolutely.
So it seems to me that when people tell me they only vote in presidential elections, they really need to have their heads examined. Because if you got a school board race and you got children in the schools, you ought to take a hand in deciding who sits on that school board.
Right.
The same thing with city councils and county councils, state legislatures. Right now, state legislatures decide where congressional district lines are drawn. It's a funny process.
Mm.
I sit in the Congress, but the state legislature over there, the House and the Senate, state House and Senate, they decide where the lines are, what my district will look like. So every one of these offices are important.
Right.
And so people should really pay close attention to what's happening around them and see what impact these office holders will have on your everyday lives. So it's very, very important to get involved in these elections, irrespective of what, who may be or may not be the president.
One last thing before I let you go, and I've asked this question of all of the politicians that I've been fortunate to interview for this special issue. I know we hear it time after time with every election. You need to vote, you need to vote. This vote is important. We've heard so much over the past few months that we need to get out and vote. We meaning Black people. We need to get out and vote as if our lives depended on it. Can you speak to that statement and the importance of just voting in this election itself, whether it's focusing on the presidential candidate or even here in South Carolina, we have a big Senate race. Can you just speak to, especially our young people, the importance of getting out and actually voting in this election?
Absolutely. Look, this election, like every other election, is very, very important. But unlike every other election, this election is more consequential than most. Now, I've been saying, and I really feel strongly, that this is the most consequential presidential election since 1860.
Wow.
Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. The consequences of his election were the Emancipation Proclamations. There were two of them. One that freed slaves in the District of Columbia. It became effective in 1862. The other one, it freed slaves in the former slave states that became effective in January 1, 1863. And that ushered in a period known as emancipation, known as, before Jim Crow, for some reason, that period, right after that, is called the period of Reconstruction. And during Reconstruction on the last 12 years, Reconstruction came to an end in 1877. And Reconstruction came to an end, as I said, came to an end in 1877, and Reconstruction came into being by one vote. Wow. One vote put Reverend B. Hayes in office. And he brought it into Reconstruction. And that led to Jim Crow. The Jim Crow era lasted from 1877 to 1954. It came into being by one vote. So I would say to folks that that tells you what the consequences are that could flow from one vote.
Right.
If you can bring it into Reconstruction by one vote, usher in Jim Crow laws by one vote, that tells you the power of one vote. So we have to look at this election, in my opinion, as being an election that is a referendum on this democracy that we live in. You got a guy sitting in the White House who refuses, who tells you right now, but it wasn't just now, he did this 4 years ago. And I think people laughed 4 years ago when he said, you know, this election, the only way I can lose this election is if it's rigged. And they asked him, well, will you leave office? Will you accept the results? He said, only if I win. That's what he said 4 years ago.
Wow.
Now he's saying that he's refusing to say that he will leave office if he loses the election. That's what happens in countries with dictators.
Yes.
And so we have to ask ourselves, why is it that all these reporters, not these talking heads in the mornings now, referring to this guy as Mussolini? I'd say that back in February 2018, I called Trump Mussolini back then, and a lot of people give me a hard time for saying that. But I've studied history all my life. I used to teach history. And I can tell you right now, this guy thinks he's Mussolini.
Wow.
And that is what his plans are. He doesn't plan to leave office. Not peacefully. And the Constitution is silent on what to do. If anybody loses the election, not lose office, we don't know what the Constitution, how the Constitution will kick in. So we could be, unless there's a real definitive election, we might have a real constitutional crisis in this country, which could lead to an end to this democracy.
Wow.
It's a possibility. And I can tell you there are all kinds of scenarios. There are people in strange places now sitting down, plowing through books, plowing through the constitutions, lawyers gearing up, because a lot of people fear that we will have a constitutional crisis in this country after November 3rd.
Wow. That is definitely something that we should all have in the forefront of our minds. That should be enough to motivate everyone to go out to vote. I tell
Absolutely.
you, this conversation with you is priceless. I appreciate you.
Good.
Your time. I appreciate what you continue to do for the state of South Carolina and for us, for the culture as a whole. Like I said, you are definitely one of our hometown heroes. And I just pray that you have continued longevity. We need you there in the White House, and we appreciate all that you're doing for us.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to be sure and call Bill tonight and tell him that you got him mixed up with the good-looking Clyburn.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck. Thank you.